Money, as I've learned, has a way of revealing the ugly truths people try to hide. It was like that moment standing outside my father's study, the wood grain digging into my fingertips as I listened to him discuss my future, or rather, the lack of one he'd planned for me. We can't afford both, Linda, both. Anna's law school has to take priority. Chloe will have to make do with that diner job. 20 years. 20 years of being the family afterthought, the practical one, crystallized in that single sentence. Anna, the golden child, would get her shot at becoming a high-powered attorney, while I'd be slinging hash browns at Pete's diner. But Robert, my mother's voice wavered, weak as always. We promised both girls we'd help with their education. Anna has real potential, Linda. Chloe just needs to be practical. I stepped back from the door, my chest tight with a mixture of rage and a twisted sort of vindication. All those years of telling myself I was imagining things, that my parents couldn't possibly favor Anna so blatantly, gone in an instant. The house suddenly felt suffocating. I grabbed my keys and jacket, needing to escape before I did something stupid like confront them. Fate, it seemed, had other plans for my dramatic exit. "Chloe, where are you going?" Anna appeared at the top of the stairs, perfect as always in her designer outfit. "Mom's making dinner. Family night, remember?" I almost laughed. Family night. What a joke. "Not feeling well," I managed, heading for the door. Story 2. The sharp edges of the letter sliced into my fingertips as it shook in my palms. I was exhausted after 48 hours of back-to-back operations, but as soon as I saw Brad's handwriting, my fatigue disappeared. Samantha, my 16-year-old daughter, stood with her arms folded in our kitchen, studying me with eyes that were too wise for her age. "Dad said you would be upset." That new sharpness was in her voice. The one that emerged immediately following the divorce was the one I had come to despise. I made myself take a breath. When was this delivered? "He advised me yesterday to wait until you came home from work before bringing it up." He did, of course. Brad always had the ideal timing, waiting to attack when I was at my most vulnerable. I took another look at the legal papers. I'm sure I'm hallucinating because I'm tired, but I'm not. The wording didn't alter. Complete custody. In reality, my ex-husband wanted exclusive custody of our kid. "You're never home," he says. Samantha went on, each sentence seeming like a charge that coming from a surgeon who works non-stop is unstable. If the irony hadn't been so annoying, I may have laughed. Additionally, it is difficult to live with a graphic designer who is unemployed and unable to retain business. He works as a freelance mother. There is a distinction. Before I could rumple the letter into a ball, I put it down. "You understand why I work these hours, Sam, honey. My education fund, the house, and everything else must be paid for by someone. I am aware." She moved away from the counter with a shove. "But perhaps Dad is correct. It could be preferable if, what if?" The words sounded harsher than they should have. "If you shared a home with the man who avoided accountability throughout our marriage and still owes 3 months' worth of child support." "He's there, at least." Samantha's voice broke. "He gives me his time. How recently did we all eat supper together? Not just takeout, but a whole meal, in between your operations." The question struck like a punch to the body. To defend myself, I opened my mouth, but the truth became lodged in my throat. How long ago was that? It was 2 weeks ago. 3. It buzzed on my phone. The screen lights up with Megan's name, most likely to see how my long shift went. I choose to disregard it. "Let's talk about this, Sam, please." She retreated as I grabbed for her. "My homework is due." She paused at the kitchen doorway and looked away. "Dad wants to talk about the agreement when they meet tomorrow. My lawyer will be there," he says. The room whirled a little. His attorney at the coffee shop close to his home. "For Condry." She looked back, and I briefly noticed a flash of uncertainty on her face. "Oh," he said. "To let you know, it doesn't have to turn ugly," he said. "That anything might be easy if you accept the terms." Easy. Brad had never been straightforward. Upstairs, I saw my kid vanish. Her steps were laden with conflicting allegiances and adolescent anguish. There was silence in the house, aside from my heart thumping and the refrigerator humming. Once more my phone buzzed. I picked it up this time. Let me know you're alive and at home. When I responded, Megan replied, I've returned home. Though I'm not sure whether I'm still alive, I gazed at the letter on the counter. That shift was awful. It was a good shift. To survive, 3 successful procedures were required. Saved. I just returned home and discovered that my ex-husband is attempting to kidnap my daughter, but I was able to trace Brad's signature with my finger. On the other end, there was a prolonged period of stillness. I'll be there with wine in 20 minutes. Make it 15, I responded, already figuring up how many hours of sleep I could give up to get ready for the surprise attack tomorrow. Megan, too. Bring the pricey items. I have a feeling that I'll need it. After hanging up, I picked up the letter and read it again. Brad was always underestimating me. He believed that my weariness and shame would make me a simple target. However, he had overlooked one important fact. I didn't give up a struggle to become a pediatric surgeon. He would find out exactly what type of opponent he had made tomorrow. With every minute that goes by, the bare brick walls of the coffee shop appear to close in. While my own attorneys scrawled notes next to me, Brad, his lawyer, sat across from me, a severe presence at his side. With the exception of the espresso machine's hiss, we had been in heated quiet for the majority of the 15 minutes since the meeting began. Elena, you seem worn out. Brad had mastered the tone of worry and familiarity in his voice over the years. Those hospital hours are having a significant negative impact. I saw his game right away. Everything that is documented and intended to create an image. I have the exact appearance of someone who works as a young lifeguard. Brad. Let's not engage in small conversation. His attorney cleared his throat. A fair plan for custody arrangements has been produced by us. That accounts for the hectic schedule of Dr. Matthew. Do you mean my prosperous career? I bent over. The one who has provided for our needs for the last 10 years. Brad tensed and grinned. Honey, nobody is doubting your achievement. All that matters to us is Samantha's emotional health. Do not refer to me as honey. The words were as clear as ice. Additionally, don't act as though Samantha's welfare is at stake. After 3 months have passed since you last paid child support. Brad's attorney really interrupted, passing a paper across the table. I have copies of every school function I've attended, and we have proof that Dr. Matthews' work schedule has caused many family gatherings to be missed. I interrupted and included documentation of all the times Brad said he was unable to attend due to client meetings that, oddly, never led to any real work. Brad's mouth tightened. I mean, this isn't about me. I took out my phone and looked through the texts. You texted Samantha last week. Should we talk about that? The one in which you informed her that I put my career before her. That was a private discussion with my 16-year-old daughter, who is becoming more and more nervous due to her father's emotional manipulation. I went to his attorney. Was that part what he said? The attorney moved uneasily. Brad's cheeks turned crimson. This is what you usually do. Make everything better. Talk about my shortcomings. My lawyer, Dr. Matthews, gave me a silent warning. However, I was already upright. Do you wish to discuss failures? I spoke in a calm, quiet tone. Let's speak about how I worked double shifts for 3 years while you built your portfolio. Or the day when Samantha needed braces and you were abruptly unable to help since you were working on other projects. That's precisely why we're worried. Brad's attorney intervened. You're hostile. His passive manipulation is far more impressive than his attitude. I collected my belongings. Do you wish to battle Brad? All right. But keep in mind that I make a career by cutting people open. I know just where to cause pain. There was a startled hush outside as I left, my heels tapping against the wooden floor. The fall air struck my face, and I drew my first deep breath in what seemed like hours. It buzzed on my phone. Samantha texted. How was it? A second message came up before I could reply. You stormed out, according to Dad. He had already been in touch with her, of course. I took my time typing. When I get home, we can discuss it. I adore you. There were 3 dots. Vanished. Resurfaced. I'm working late once more. It seemed like a trap question. In 2 hours, I was supposed to have surgery. a child with a congenital cardiac condition who is 6 years old. This lot was what her parents had been waiting months for. I did write back, yes. But tomorrow for supper, I'll be home. Promise? No answer. My phone rang. The screen flashes Megan's name. Well, when I replied, she inquired, "How awful was it? Do you recall that I shouldn't allow him to agitate me?" I made my way over to my car. I may have given him a surgically precise threat. I understand, Eliana, but you ought to have seen him. Megan. While poisoning Samantha against me, I pretended to be worried about her. What will you do next? I arrived at my car but chose not to get in. Here at Samantha's school, he has been spreading rumors. I must know exactly what he has been saying, with whom he has been speaking, and how. Do you recall the architect Derek? The attractive person who created the new pediatric wing is the one I've been seeing. How about him? The same school is attended by his daughter. I grinned as a thought came to me. I believe it's time for me to go to more parent events. Take caution. I'm going to be the example of stability, because Brad is already portraying you as unstable. As I discreetly learned more about the type of web he has been spinning, I got into my car. Samantha. I stopped smiling. The tough aspect is that I must resolve this without turning her into yet another battleground. You will. Megan spoke quietly. He will never be a better father than you. As I checked the clock, I turned on the engine. Regards, Meg. Now I have to go rescue a life. Later on, however, we are plotting a battle. The typical mixture of nervousness and compelled civility permeated the parent-teacher conference. I made my way past groups of people talking. Derek and my parents were a constant presence next to me until Mrs. Chen's well-known voice broke the commotion. Matthew's doctor. How unexpected. There was an edge to her tone that I had never heard before. We didn't anticipate you because of your timetable. I always find time for the vital things. She refused to look me in the eyes, so I grinned. In AP Chemistry, how is Samantha doing? Mrs. Chen rearranged a few documents. Maybe we should talk about this in private. Naturally. I looked across at Derek. Do you mind? Mrs. Chen really interrupted. Samantha's father, Mr. Harrison, asked to attend any parent-teacher conferences. Everything fit together. Did he just now? And at what point in Samantha's academic career did my ex-husband become so involved? Lately, he has been quite worried. She looked anxiously around Samantha's living space. He probably has. I lowered my voice and leaned forward. Dr. Matthews, what has Brad been telling you? Because I would really like to know why my daughter's grades fell immediately after he began attending on a regular basis. Derek put his hand on my arm. Well, perhaps we ought to. No. I took out my phone and looked through the texts. This is what I believe occurred. Brad began to stop by, most likely while he should have been working at lunch. He expressed his worries to you about Samantha's living situation with her busy mother. Did he bring up the prescribed medications? Mrs. Chen's gaze grew wide. You take them to keep awake during surgeries, he explained. Isn't that what he's telling people? My phone displayed a slew of text messages as I set it down on her desk. Brad sent them to Samantha. Have you noticed the timestamps? All during the school day, she has been fed tales about me by him. I then came here to support them. I was unaware. Obviously not. Brad is an expert in his field. I stood up straight. Here's what you need to know, though. I have never engaged in drug use. I can confirm that with my quarterly medical exams. I do have a wonderful profession that involves saving the lives of children. In contrast, my ex-husband hasn't had a reliable work for years. The entrance to the classroom opened. Brad was standing there, his timing, as usual, flawless. What are you doing here, Eliana? It's funny. That's what I was going to ask you. I looked over at him. You've been going to parent-teacher conferences since when? Because stability was necessary for our daughter. He entered and shut the door. I apologize for interrupting you, Mrs. Chen. Brad, don't say sorry for me. I stepped forward. I could feel Derek stiffening behind me. Instead, be honest with her about the lies, manipulation, and unpaid child support. You're confirming what I said about stability. His smile was piercing. Mrs. Chen repeated, I'm having another episode. Don't. I lowered my voice dangerously low. You dare not. Don't worry, honey. Brad's anxiety was exaggerated. We are all aware of the strain you are under. Something broke. I held out my phone and opened another message. Mrs. Chen, Reddit. Last week, Brad texted Samantha to ask her to videotape me if I act strangely again. Part of constructing his custody argument. Brad's expression grew serious. It's confidential, as if the gossip you've been circulating here is confidential. I looked across to Mrs. Chen. Examine your documents. Every missing assignment, every absence. All of these align with Brad's growing engagement. He's not doing Samantha any favors. To reach me, he undermined her. That's sufficient. Brad grabbed my phone. Derek moved to the side. This becomes much worse if you touch her. Tension crackled in the room. Mrs. Chen stood, obviously uneasy. Maybe we ought to reschedule. Not necessary. I collected my belongings. My point has been made. However, Mrs. Chen, the next time my ex-husband will express his worries, why would a parent intentionally harm his daughter's schooling in order to get even with his ex-wife? I started toward the door, then stopped. Oh, and the aforementioned quarterly health examinations, Brad. The public has access to them. Check them out if you want. In contrast to some people's freelancing portfolio, these are real. I was swept up by Derek. That was really intense. Things will become worse. With trembling palms, I halted my stride. For months, he has been poisoning everyone against me in this game. Our buddies and the school. Samantha, what will we do next? I heard Brad talking quickly to Mrs. Chen through the window of the classroom. He's repairing the damage with his charm. I grasped Derek's hand now and gave it a little squeeze. We're off now. Nuclear. Give your daughter a call. Everything Brad has said at student activities has to be shared with me. Then I grinned gloomily. After that, we will give him precisely what he desires. A show for the people. Not the one he's anticipating, though. It seemed like a confessional in Megan's office. Safe and sterile. As she went over the most recent email from my lawyer, I sat in the visitor's chair and repeatedly turned my phone in my hands. He's asking for a mental health assessment. Megan sounded incredulous. For what reasons? It seems that my unpredictable conduct during the parent-teacher meeting raises questions regarding my mental health. Before I could toss the phone, I put it down. For months, Brad has been establishing this foundation. My judgment is impacted by the suggestions regarding my work hours and the rumors regarding prescription medications. It was that cunning jerk. Megan bent over. But you're capable of fighting this. We were stopped by a knock. Derek stood grimly at the doorway. We must now speak. I felt sick to my stomach. What took place? He shut the door after himself. My daughter just gave me a call. Samantha is in the office of the principal. In class, she suffered a panic attack. What? I reached for my handbag. Why didn't they give me a call, since Brad was present when it occurred? Derek's mouth clenched. 3 times a week, he and her have been eating lunch together at school. Were you aware of the bodily impact of the betrayal? No. She informed me that she and her buddies were studying. There's more. He paused. Both parents are invited to meet with the school counselor. Brad has persuaded them that Samantha's anxiousness is caused by domestic instability. He has, of course. I reclined in the chair. This has always been his plan. Every action and every discussion leading up to this point. Megan put her hand on my arm. Perhaps it's time to think of another strategy, Elle. I got up and paced. Which strategy? He cites my legal retaliation as proof of my instability. He has greater power if I back off. He uses it against me if I try to expose him. Then perhaps Derek talked slowly. Perhaps we should let him win. What? Listen to me. I take it he wants to be in charge? So, temporarily give it to him. While we collect concrete proof, let him believe he is winning. Megan gave a slow nod. If he believes he has succeeded, he will become careless. No. It was a harsh term. I refuse to let him believe that he has damaged me. I won't. It buzzed on my phone. Samantha texted, "Please don't be angry, Mom. One more buzz." "You need help," says Dad. He could be correct. The room whirled a little. I read the texts again while holding on to the back of the chair. My daughter, my intelligent, astute daughter, thought I was unstable now. Elle. Megan's tone sounded aloof. What are you interested in doing? I glanced back at Megan after looking up at Derek. I wish to ruin him. That isn't a response, Derek said. No, I opened my calendar. Observe me. I'm go to that counselor's meeting first. I'll take on the role of the overburdened, sentimental mother that Brad has built. I'll consent to the psychological assessment. I may even shed a tear or two. Then, after that, I'm requesting all of the favors I've received from this facility. All of the nurses that filled in for me while Samantha was ill. Every coworker who has personally observed Brad's carelessness. Everyone who has witnessed me juggling parenthood and saving lives, including the parents of every child I have rescued. Megan's eyes glowed with comprehension. You'll be able to construct your own story more effectively. The warmth was gone from my smile. Brad doesn't know this, so I'm going to let him ruin his own. Everything has been recorded by me. Every deceptive communication, every unpaid invoice, and every falsehood he has told Samantha about me. And our daughter will soon discover the true nature of her father. That may backfire. Samantha might not forgive you both, Derek cautioned. Perhaps. I packed up my belongings, but I would rather she despise me for being honest than adore me for putting up with falsehoods. Once more, my phone buzzed. The medical facility. One more urgent operation. The time was ideal, I whispered. Brad will adore this. Do you want me to attend the school? Megan volunteered. No. I pressed my coat straight. I'll follow Brad's instructions to the letter. Put your job above your family. Let him believe that his strategy is effective. At the door, let him think he's winning. I stopped. I'm going to save a child's life first, though. That's what unreliable, unsuitable moms do, isn't it? As we plan our retaliation, we just keep saving lives. With a gratifying click, the door closed behind me, leaving a trail of stillness. It was time to prove to Brad that some surgeons could do removal and rebuilding just as well, whether it was well-crafted falsehoods or broken hearts. Emma, Derek's daughter, was sitting across from me in the hospital cafeteria, tearing a napkin nervously. For telling you this, Dad is going to murder me. No, he won't. I shoved aside my unfinished coffee. What did you hear specifically? I didn't hear it alone. She took her phone out. After Dad explained what was going on, I began to capture everything. Harrison, Mr. Brad. He has been conversing with all of the students, teachers and parents, even a few pupils. I squeezed my hands beneath the table. Show me. Shot from behind a row of lockers, the footage was blurry. Brad joined two other parents in standing. There was that familiar worried tone in his voice, very concerned about Samantha. Eliana was utterly unpredictable when she arrived at 3 a.m. the other night, began yelling about unfounded conspiracies. Emma recoiled at the sharpness of the words. There's more. She slid to a different video. Brad was with a teacher this time. Prescription medications are only the first step. She was too drunk to remember to pick up Samantha last week. Suddenly, it seemed like the cafeteria lights were too bright. What time was this? Tuesday of last week. The day when Sam experienced a panic attack. It buzzed on my phone. Samantha texted, "Tonight I'm staying at Dad's. Do you need room?" There was another buzz. "Perhaps you ought to speak with someone. A good therapist is someone Dad knows." He did, of course. The therapist probably already knew about all of my experiences. "Matthew's doctor." Emma drew me back with her words. "Something else is involved. I heard him discussing some sort of investment idea on the phone yesterday. Samantha's college fund may be used." The globe momentarily ceased to revolve. What? He and someone else were fighting over account access, mentioned assured returns and short-term borrowing. I broke my coffee cups in my hands, spilling lukewarm drink all over the table. I hardly noticed when a neighboring nurse hurried over with napkins. "Emma, I must have those records." Even to myself, my voice sounded distant. "Each and every one." I emailed them to Dad previously. She assisted with cleaning up the coffee. However, yesterday I was filmed by Mr. Harrison and Dr. Matthews. He waved and grinned. My spine became slack. "What is he?" As if he desired that I videotape him, she spoke more softly. "It may be a trap, according to Dad." Once more, my phone buzzed. Brad's attorney sent an email asking for an urgent hearing for interim custody. The precise moment Emma had been recording him yesterday was reflected in the timestamp. He is deceiving us. The insight struck like a punch to the body. He asked us to collect proof. He may now accuse me of spying on him through Derek's daughter. Emma's gaze expanded. I'm so sorry. I didn't intend to. You're not to blame. I got up and started calling Derek. However, I need those recordings erased immediately. Each and every one. Now, however, please, Emma. Her hands trembled as she obeyed. How will you respond? The response was surprisingly clear. Brad will get precisely what he wants from me. A public breakdown. Derek replied on the first ring. Just not the kind he's expecting. Ellie, what's the matter? Do you recall next week's charity gala? The one where an award is being given to Brad's new client. Send me an invitation, however. I saw Emma remove the previous video. It's time to teach Brad that he should choose someone who is unaware of the whereabouts of all his bodies if he wishes to ruin someone's reputation. Hold on, Eliana. I ended the call. Back to Emma. I appreciate you informing me. Go home now and put what you've witnessed behind you. If anyone inquires, Brad in particular, I never heard from you. She gathered her belongings at the cafeteria entrance and nodded. She hesitated. According to Dr. Matthews's father, you save children's lives every day. Perhaps that's what Mr. Harrison is most afraid of, that you're more powerful than him. I sat by myself after she went, looking at the coffee stains on the table. The buzzing on my phone persisted. Samantha, Derek, Megan, Brad's attorney. I paid them all no attention, instead, concentrating on the image of Brad grinning as Emma was filming him. He believed that everything was in order and that every action was planned. However, he had overlooked something important. In the operating room, I did more than simply mend shattered hearts. In order to save the patient, I occasionally had to break them first. Brad's meticulously built world was on the verge of collapsing. The charity banquet was a glittering spectacle of costly gowns and broken promises. I pushed the USB drive I had concealed in my bra against my ribcage while I straightened my black evening gown. Brad worked the audience throughout the ballroom. His new customer is waiting for him to speak. Are you certain about this? Derek's hand was murmured, on my lower back, steady. He is investing money from Samantha's education fund. My glass of champagne shook a little. Derek, the future of our daughter. I draw the line at that point. Mom. Samantha was standing behind us as I turned around, dressed in a blue outfit I had never seen before. It must have been purchased for her by Brad. Why are you here? The inquiry sounded more pointed than it should have. I was invited by Dad. She squinted. You might try something tonight, he added. He did, of course. I put my champagne down. You don't comprehend everything, Sam. Similar to how you used Emma to spy on your father. Her voice was low as she moved closer. He showed me the recordings, the pictures, and the proof. How were you able to? There was a little tilt to the room. That was not the case. Keep it. She produced her phone and displayed a number of texts to me. Brad and his attorney's discussions on my harassment campaign. Tomorrow, Dad will file for a restraining order. It's the only way to keep me safe, he claims. To keep you safe? I sounded empty as I laughed. Samantha, he is defrauding you. You have money set out for education. Brad stepped behind our daughter, and his words broke the silence. Next week, I was planning to give you both a surprise. Returns are assured. There are no guarantees. I grabbed copies of his dubious activities from my handbag, with the possible exception of how you'll lose everything. Like, the same as before. Brad's smile was piercing. When that startup cost me our savings, you never let me forget that moment. He looked at Samantha. Can you see how unstable she is? The paranoia. Derek took a step forward. That's sufficient. Brad really took his phone out. The time was ideal. Safety. Indeed, she is present. She may be, just as I told you. 2 black-suited men came over. To his earpiece, one said, Dr. Matthews, you must accompany us. What? I glanced around and became acutely conscious of the onlookers. This is absurd. Please, Mom. Samantha's voice broke. Avoid creating a commotion. Simply leave. Pay attention to our daughter. before you do something else that you'll regret," Brad added quietly. My skin felt like it was being burned by the USB drive. I could reveal everything in one motion: the deceptive investments, the slanted communications, and the deliberate damage to my reputation. But there was more than wrath in Samantha's eyes. Right now, fear. I was the source of her fear. All right. The flavor of the word was defeat. "I'll leave." Derek attempted to trail behind me, but I stopped him. "Remain with Sam." The security officers led me past co-workers who refused to look at me, through the stares and the muttering, past Brad's victorious grin. One guard talked softly in the lobby. "We're told to call the police if you come back, Dr. Matthews. Don't make this hard, please." The night air struck like a slab outside. It buzzed on my phone. Samantha sent a message. "Dad is correct. Do you require assistance? Get assistance, please." One more buzz. In a social media post regarding the event, Brad had tagged me and said he was very worried about my well-being. He also asked for prayers during this trying time. The hospital board's email asking for an urgent meeting to discuss my recent behavior was the last buzz. Brad cuddled our daughter as I stood by myself on the sidewalk and watched through the window, perfectly portraying the worried parent. He had planned it all out: security, witnesses, and recordings. He made it into the last evidence of my instability because he knew I would try to expose him tonight. Once more, my phone buzzed. "Megan is phoning." I chose to ignore it, and the tears that threatened to spill. It wouldn't help to cry. Right now, nothing would help. Brad had prevailed. A vehicle arrived. Derek's. I must have warned him, yet he must have obeyed. However, I turned aside. Walking for the first time. "Eliana, hold on." Return to Samantha. I made a call behind my back. She requires stability in her life. I continued to wear my evening gown and carried the now worthless proof as I strolled into the darkness, his footsteps fading. Like a reminder of all I had lost, the USB disk pushed on my heart. But in the midst of the rage and the tears, a fresh idea emerged. Occasionally, a surgeon had to allow the heart to stop entirely before reviving it with more strength. And my heart had simply stopped beating. 3 days following the catastrophe at Gala, my phone flashed up with an unknown number as I sat in my empty house looking over the hospital board's resignation documents. "Mom?" Static crackled in Samantha's voice. "Do you hear me? Sam? What's the matter?" "Dad's workplace is where I am." She hesitated, gasping for air, but I needed his laptop for a school assignment. "There are emails regarding the college money, Mom. Almost anything." My heart stopped beating. "Where is your dad?" "Having a meeting with investors." "He lost it, Mom. Everything." Additionally, there are additional recordings of him mentoring others. "What can I say about you?" Payments to his attorney for creating false evidence. "Samantha, pay close attention. Keep your hands off anything else. I'll be there, no time." In the background, keys sounded. "I'm sending you all of this right now, but I'm very sorry, Mama. I ought to have..." The line died. My phone started buzzing right away. Discussions, bank statements, and dozens of incoming emails. Proof of Brad's complex plan to ruin me and take our daughter's future. One more buzz. "Brad." I'm alone at my office now. Before I could get to the door, I snatched up my keys. One more text. "Let others know where you're heading. Samantha finds out the truth about what actually transpired the night you lost that patient the previous year. The night I was exonerated of any misconduct. Brad had allegedly been collecting ammo that night. My thoughts were racing as I drove through streets soaked with rain. The top level of a refurbished warehouse housed Brad's office, which was ideal for dazzling customers because it had exposed brick and industrial chic. Only his office light at the end of the corridor burned, and he never left the elevator doors open to the dark. I am being drawn in by a beacon. With Samantha's phone in front of him, Brad was seated behind his desk. With tears running down her cheeks, our daughter stood at the window. "Get rid of them." Without checking the emails, he said, I remained in the entrance. "It's a bit late for that. Every copy, right now." At last, he looked directly into my eyes. "Or I tell the tale of your carelessness from the previous year. Your career is already in jeopardy. Just one push. Do you really want to discuss carelessness?" After taking your daughter's future, I came forward. I was safeguarding her future." He stood up abruptly, causing Samantha to wince. "Getting her away from you was the goal of all I did, by ruining me and giving her the impression that I was unstable. You're not steady. A surgeon who works nonstop. Who covered all of your expenses as you pursued methods to make quick money?" I stepped forward. "Who paid for your errors? While you played victim, who shielded Samantha? Quit." He flushed. "Tell her, Samantha. Tell her that our relationship has improved significantly." However, Samantha didn't give us a glance. She had her phone in her hand. As Brad concentrated on me, she took her actual phone out of her pocket. She held up the gadget. "Actually, Dad, I believe I have more to share." Brad's face drained of blood. "What are you doing?" "Recording, like you instructed me." She spoke tremblingly, but firmly. "Everything has been recorded by me. Every discussion in which you gave me coaching. What can I say about Mom? You boasted about ruining her reputation every time. Everything. Samantha. 10 minutes ago, I mailed copies to Mom's attorney." She stepped toward me, away from the window. "It's finished. Dad." I moved in front of Brad as he reached for her phone. "Give her a touch. Furthermore, there will be other things that require surgery besides your reputation." He paused, then let out a hollow laugh. "You actually think you'll get any credence? After all, the evidence will convince them." Samantha's voice broke. "The actual proof. Not the ones you've modified. I took care of this for you." His hand smacked into the desk. "Was that all for you?" "No." She took hold of my hand. "It was all for you. It was always that way." We left him in the elevator, surrounded by his lies and machinations. Samantha sobbed as she fell on me. "Mom, I'm terribly sorry. I ought to have seen it sooner." I felt her tremble as I hugged her tight. "Just when you needed it, you saw it." I buzzed the hospital board to ask for an urgent meeting about newly discovered evidence. Samantha gave me a glance. "Now what? Right now?" I dabbed at her tears. "We're rebuilding together now." Behind us in his tower of lies, the elevator doors opened to rain, streets drenched by the waves, and the first signs of morning. Brad must deal with the fallout from his biggest deception, unaware that he had met the daughter he professed to be protecting. Retaliation wasn't always about ruining someone. At times, it was just a matter of letting the facts do the talking. This morning, the boardroom at the hospital felt strange. Somehow, even with the October rain beating down on the windows, it was warmer. As the board went over Brad's final exposed falsehoods, I sat between Derek and Megan. The chief surgeon, Dr. Matthews, shut his file. "I think we should apologize to you." Samantha texted me before I could reply, and my phone chimed. "Should I pick up when Dad calls again? Your selection was typed back by me. Now, it's always up to you." As the board proceeded with their official remarks on reinstatement, my gaze strayed to the window depicting a young lady holding her infant in the parking lot below. Her daughter's heart had been spared by yesterday's operation. It was a complicated repair that needed to be done by breaking things. The chief went on. "There's one more thing. A number of the corporations on your ex-husband's customer list were hospital board members. There can be judicial repercussions given the proof of his financial irregularities." I whispered, "I'm a surgeon. I mend hearts. I don't care what happens to Brad anymore." Once more my phone buzzed. "Samantha." "I can explain everything," he claims. "That his love for me is the reason he did it." As I answered, Derek gripped my hand beneath the table. Love is insufficient sometimes. It's simply another name for control at times. Handshakes and uncomfortable apologies marked the conclusion of the meeting. In the corridor, Megan drew me away. Brad's attorney phoned. He's making an offer. If the criminal charges are dropped, he will sign away all parental rights. I didn't make that choice. I looked at my phone. Samantha had stopped talking. It was his investors, not me, who made such accusations. Megan paused. "Are you certain that the way this concluded is acceptable to you? It seems almost too simple." "Simple?" I chuckled. But now there was no resentment. He lost everything, attempting to ruin me. His connection with Samantha, his clients, and his reputation. It's not simple. Karma is that. Talking about karma, Derek showed up holding his iPad. Brad made an intriguing social media post recently. I looked at the display, a long, meandering confession about getting assistance for mental health issues. People who were unaware of the facts poured their support into the comment area. Give him his story. I returned the iPad. Lies are necessary for certain individuals to live. I no longer do. It buzzed on my phone. For the last time. Samantha once more. I informed my dad that I needed time and that I couldn't see him for a long. He broke down in tears, said he had no intention of hurting anyone. Do you want me to come get you? I responded to the SMS. No. I'm being driven to your residence by Emma's mother. I believe Dad did everything for himself, even though he insisted he did everything for me. Is it strange to comprehend at last? It's known as growing up in the hospital lobby, honey. Derek drew me in. Your girl is just remarkable. She is. You know that. The rain slowed to a trickle while I watched. She had to know the truth, so she took notes on everything. She was talking about herself, not just Brad, regarding her abilities. Similar to a mother, similar to a daughter. Megan spoke quietly. My pager was buzzing. Another heart was required for emergency surgery, which required delicate hands to shatter and repair. Proceed. Derek grinned. Preserve a life. We'll talk to Samantha about supper. Brad sent me a final message on my phone as I was leaving into the operating room. All of this was not my intention. Could we please have a conversation? Without replying, I removed it. Some hearts were irreparable. The surgical prep room is not the place for some. I noticed my image in the mirror. My eyes are no longer shadowed. No more of his manipulations wait. Applying pressure. Only a surgeon prepared to do her specialty. Fix what was damaged. But Brad's social media revelation crossed my mind as I washed in, regarding the ease with which individuals might believe anything they chose to believe. Perhaps it was his true penalty, claiming to be someone he wasn't for the remainder of his life. Samantha and I, on the other hand, lived authentically as ourselves. Matthew's doctor. One of the nurses stuck her head in. Are the patients prepared? I felt the comfortable serenity as I nodded. Calm down over me. There will be fresh difficulties tomorrow. Assisting Samantha in her recovery. Restoring confidence. Achieving equilibrium. However, there was just a heart that needed to be saved at this precise time, and I was at least capable of doing it. Wait! Anna descended the stairs, concern etched on her face. Is everything okay? You look upset. Everything's fine, I said. Just like always. Perfect, actually. Just like you. She flinched at my tone. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Just like my future, apparently. The door slammed behind me with a satisfying force. I made it halfway down the driveway before my father's voice boomed from the porch. Young lady, get back here, right now. I turned, seeing him silhouetted in the doorway, my mother and Anna hovering anxiously behind him. 20 years of swallowed words rose in my throat. Why? I shouted back. So you can tell me to my face that I'm not worth investing in? That Anna is the only one who deserves a future? His face darkened. You were eavesdropping? Damn right I was, I said. And I'm glad I did. Finally got some honesty around here. Chloe, please. My mother stepped forward. We can discuss this. Discuss what? I asked, my voice shaking. How you've spent years funneling everything to Anna while telling me to be practical? To lower my expectations? To settle? Anna's face had gone pale. That's not fair. Life isn't fair, sis, I retorted. But you wouldn't know about that, would you? My father's voice turned cold. That's enough. You're being childish and ungrateful. Ungrateful? I laughed, the sound harsh even to my own ears. For what? A lifetime of being second best? The constant comparisons? Or maybe I should be grateful for the diner job you've so generously planned for my future. If you'd shown half the dedication to me that you have to Anna. I took a deep breath. I got better grades than she did. I worked 2 jobs through high school while she went to dance lessons and tennis camp. I did everything right, and it still wasn't enough. Silence fell. My mother was crying now. Anna looked stricken, and my father just looked disappointed as usual. If that's how you feel, he said finally. Perhaps you should leave until you've calmed down and can be reasonable. Don't worry, I said, backing away. I'm done being reasonable. I'm done being practical. And I'm done being the family disappointment. I got in my car, hands shaking as I turned the key. Through the windshield, I could see them still standing there. The perfect family tableau, minus the inconvenient second daughter who'd finally stopped playing her assigned role. As I drove away, one thought crystallized in my mind. I was going to prove them wrong. And when I did, they'd regret every moment they'd spent underestimating me. I ended up at Aunt Clara's house that night, my hands still shaking as I clutched a cup of chamomile tea. Her old Victorian home had always been my sanctuary, filled with antiques and the lingering scent of lavender. Tonight, it felt like my last refuge. Your father called, Aunt Clara said, settling into her worn leather armchair. He seems to think you're being unreasonable. Of course he does, I said, the tea burning my throat. Did he mention the part where they've saved nothing for my education? Or how they expect me to spend my life serving pancakes while Anna becomes a lawyer? Aunt Clara's eyes narrowed. No, he conveniently left that out. A knock at the door made me jump. Aunt Clara touched my shoulder as she passed, her grip surprisingly strong for a woman of 70. I heard murmured voices, then my mother's distinctive pleading tone. Chloe, please, we need to talk. I set down my cup with enough force to splash tea onto the antique coffee table. There's nothing to talk about. My mother appeared in the doorway, looking smaller than usual. Your father didn't mean... Yes, he did. I stood up. He meant every word. He always has. You're both upset, she said, wringing her hands. If we could just sit down as a family, we're not a family. I cut her off. We're Anna's support system, and I'm just the backup plan that never quite measured up. Aunt Clara returned, her face set in lines I recognized from childhood, the expression she wore when she was about to shake things up. Linda, she said, sit down. We need to discuss some things. My mother perched on the edge of the sofa, twisting her wedding ring. Clara, this is between us and Chloe. No, it's not. Aunt Clara opened a drawer in her desk, pulling out a thick envelope. Chloe, I've been waiting for the right moment to give you this. I suppose that moment is now. The envelope felt heavy in my hands. Inside was a bank statement showing an account in my name, with a balance that made my eyes widen. I started saving for both you girls when you were born, Aunt Clara said. Your parents knew about Anna's fund, but I kept yours separate. I had a feeling you might need it more. My mother's face went pale. Clara, you had no right. I had every right. Aunt Clara's voice was firm. I've watched for years as you and Robert poured everything into Anna while Chloe fought for scraps of attention. Well, now she has options. The numbers on the statement blurred as tears filled my eyes. College tuition, a future, freedom. You can't do this, my mother whispered. I already have. Aunt Clara's voice was steel wrapped in silk. Chloe, the money is yours, no strings attached. You can use it for college, start a business, whatever you choose. After my mother left, slamming the door behind her, I sat in silence, staring at the statement. Why didn't you tell me sooner? I finally asked. I wanted to see if they'd do the right thing on their own. Aunt Clara sighed. I should have known better. Anna's fund is separate and safe. This isn't about punishing her, Chloe. It's about giving you the chance you deserve. I thought about Anna, golden child Anna, who'd never had to wonder if she was enough. They'll try to make me share it with her. They can try. Aunt Clara's smile was sharp. But the account is in your name only. I made sure of that. Looking at her, I saw the steel beneath her gentle exterior. She'd been playing the long game, watching and waiting, preparing for this moment. What do I do now? I asked, overwhelmed. Whatever you want. That's the beauty of it. She leaned forward. But might I suggest starting with that business degree you've always dreamed about? For the first time since overhearing my father's words, I felt something like hope. But mixed with it was something darker, a determination to show them exactly what their practical daughter could do. They'll never forgive you for this, I said. Aunt Clara's laugh was dry as autumn leaves. My dear, at my age, forgiveness is far less interesting than justice. Now shall we look at college applications? I smiled, feeling the weight of the envelope in my hands. It wasn't just money, it was ammunition. And I intended to use every bullet. 3 months into my first semester at business school, Aunt Clara called with news that made my coffee go cold. Anna's perfect life was imploding, and for once, I had a front row seat to the disaster. Mark was arrested this morning, Aunt Clara said, her voice crackling through the phone. Securities fraud. It's all over the local news. I switched to speaker and pulled up the news site. There he was, Mark Johnson, Anna's boyfriend of 2 years, being led out of his investment firm in handcuffs. The golden boy who'd charmed our parents at every family dinner was now accused of running a Ponzi scheme that had cost his clients millions. Anna must be devastated, I said, surprised to find I meant it. That's not all. Aunt Clara paused. She knew Chloe. She worked in the firm's legal department. They're investigating her involvement. The satisfaction I'd expected to feel didn't come. Instead, my stomach twisted. How bad is it? Your father's firm is distancing itself. They've put her on indefinite leave. Your parents. Another pause. They're selling the lake house to cover her legal fees. The lake house. The same one they'd refused to mortgage for my education. My phone buzzed with another call. Anna's number. I declined it, watching as it immediately lit up again. She's been trying to reach you, Aunt Clara said. I'm not ready to talk to her. Sometimes people surprise us, Chloe, Aunt Clara said gently. Even the ones who've hurt us most. I ended the call and sat in silence, watching Anna's name flash on my screen again and again. Finally, I picked up the phone. Chloe. Anna's voice was raw, nothing like her usual polished tones. I need your help. That's new, I said, unable to resist the jab. I deserve that. She took a shuddering breath. But please, just listen. I can't talk to Mom and Dad about this. They wouldn't understand. Understand what? I asked, my voice hard. That their perfect daughter isn't so perfect. That I knew what Mark was doing and I looked the other way? The words tumbled out, a confession ripped from her soul. I found discrepancies in the paperwork months ago, she continued. He convinced me it was just aggressive investment strategy, that everyone did it. I wanted to believe him. Why are you telling me this? I asked, though a part of me already knew. Because you're the only one who won't be shocked that I failed. Her laugh was bitter. You've been expecting it all along, haven't you? I thought about all the times I'd wished for this, for Anna to fall, for our parents to see her flaws. The reality felt hollow. The investigators, she continued, they're offering a deal. If I testify against Mark, they'll grant me immunity. But Mom and Dad? They keep talking about loyalty, about standing by him. They don't understand what he really is. And what's that? I asked quietly. A monster in an expensive suit. Her voice cracked, just like I was a fraud in designer clothes, pretending to be something I'm not. I closed my eyes, remembering all the perfect family photos. Anna always front and center, me relegated to the edges. Why should I help you? Because you're smarter than me, Chloe. You always were. You saw through everything. Our parents, their expectations, this whole facade. I need that clarity now. You want my advice? I asked, my voice flat. Take the deal. Burn it all down. Silence stretched between us. Then, will you come with me to the prosecutor's office? I thought about my morning class, the midterm I should be studying for. When? Tomorrow at 9. She hesitated. I know I don't deserve your help. No, you don't. I cut her off. But I'll be there. Not for you. For the truth. After we hung up, I sat staring at my reflection in the darkened window. The sister who'd always lived in Anna's shadow was now the one she turned to for strength. The irony wasn't lost on me. My phone lit up with a text from our father. Anna needs her family united right now. Whatever issues you have with us need to wait. I typed back 4 words. I'll handle it myself. Just like I always had. Tomorrow, I'd watch Anna dismantle her perfect life, piece by piece. Part of me would enjoy it. I wasn't saint enough to pretend otherwise. But another part recognized something familiar in her voice, the sound of someone realizing their whole life had been built on shadows and lies. I opened my laptop and began researching securities fraud cases. If Anna was going to burn it all down, I'd make sure she did it right. After all, revenge is a dish best served with impeccable legal documentation. The Dean's List notification arrived the same morning as Anna's sentencing. I stared at both messages on my phone, wondering if this was karma's idea of poetry. Top of my class in business school, while my sister faced 18 months of probation and mandatory community service. My father's name lit up my screen. I hadn't spoken to him since the prosecutor's office, but I answered anyway. "Your mother and I are having dinner at Lorenzo's tonight," he said, skipping any greeting. "We need to discuss Anna's situation." "I have exams," I replied, my voice flat. "This is family, Chloe. More important than any test." I watched students stream past my dorm window, heading to class. Funny how family wasn't more important than Anna's law school when it came to my education. "That's not fair?" "Actually, it's exactly fair," I said, my voice rising. "Anna made her choices. She can deal with the consequences. She's lost everything," he said, his voice cracking. "Her career, her reputation? And you're still more worried about her than proud of me?" The words slipped out before I could stop them. Silence stretched between us. Then, "What do you mean?" "I made the Dean's List, first semester of business school." "Not that you asked." More silence. I could almost see him processing this information, trying to fit it into his worldview where Anna was the achiever and I was the practical one. That's wonderful, Chloe. But right now, Anna needs help." "Of course." I laughed, the sound harsh even to my own ears. "You know what? I have to go. Good luck with dinner." I ended the call and opened my laptop, pulling up the business proposal I'd been working on. Greg Matthews, the restaurant chain owner who'd given me my first job, had mentioned an internship opportunity. My proposal was due tomorrow. A knock at my door interrupted my thoughts. Anna stood there, looking smaller in jeans and a plain sweater. No more designer labels. "Aunt Clara told me about the Dean's List," she said. "Congratulations." I left the door open but returned to my desk. "Thanks." She hovered in the doorway. "Mom and Dad don't get it, do they? How hard you've worked." "They don't want to get it. It doesn't fit their narrative." "I didn't either." She stepped inside, closing the door. "I believed what they believed, that I was the successful one, the one with potential. But you..." She picked up one of my textbooks. "You're going to surpass everything they ever imagined for me." "Is that why you're here?" I asked, turning to face her. "To acknowledge my potential?" "No." She set the book down. "I'm here because Dad called. They're planning to ask you for money tonight, for my legal fees." The room seemed to tilt slightly. "What? The lake house sale fell through? They're desperate." She wrapped her arms around herself. "I told them not to ask you, but they won't listen. They still think they can fix everything for me." I turned back to my laptop, fingers hovering over the keyboard. "And what do you think?" "I think it's time I fix things myself." She moved toward the door. "I got a job. Nothing special, administrative work at a small firm, but it's honest work." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you were right about everything, and I wanted you to know that before they tried to drag you back into their version of reality tonight." After she left, I sat staring at my business proposal. The internship would be demanding, 60-hour weeks, intense training, no room for family drama. Exactly what I needed. I opened my phone and typed a message to my father. "Can't make dinner. Deadline for an opportunity I can't miss. Anna knows how to reach me if she needs to." Then I turned back to my proposal, adding a final section about navigating complex business relationships and maintaining professional boundaries. Greg Matthews would appreciate the irony, even if he never knew the full story. My phone buzzed with responses from my parents, but I didn't read them. Instead, I focused on my work, letting their messages pile up like the years of expectations I was finally learning to ignore. Sometimes revenge isn't about destroying someone else's dreams. Sometimes it's about building your own, brick by brick, while they watch from the sidelines, finally understanding what they failed to see.